Hey there, it's your host Dan. Today I'm going to demonstrate and I'm going to show you step by step how to fix a speaker that's got a bad surround, the part that goes around the perimeter of the speaker. Here we can see this speaker, it's bad. This is dry rotted. This woofer is over 20 years old and this is a foam surround around it. And over time, between about 10 or 20 years, these things just crumble and they just fall to pieces, especially from the woofer bouncing up and down. The surround just basically disintegrates. So today I'm going to show you how to fix that and not throw away the speaker. It's not junk at this point. All it needs is a new foam outer surround. It just takes a little time and not too much monetary expense, and it'll be just as good as new. Here I'm going to go around and just take out all the foam. I mean, look at this, it's just coming off amazingly pretty easily because it's just falling apart. This is just so dry rotted. Let's get some of this garbage out of the way here. This is going to make quite a bit of garbage, quite a bit of cosmic debris. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to have to do is get off this outer gasket that goes around the whole speaker. Now I could just come in with a screwdriver and just brute force take it off if I really wanted to, but that's probably going to wreck it. It's glued down, and I've already done one of these speakers already because I have a pair of them. And the glue that's used on this speaker, I don't know what they use, but it's phenomenal. It has such good adhesion that getting it off is really tough. So I'm going to take a fresh razor blade and I'm going to use it to just get under that very edge. Mind you, I have to watch the other end of the razor blade not to hit the cone and cut a slice in that. So I always want to keep the razor blade parallel with the basket or the outside rim here of the speaker. And I'll just keep slowly cutting away little by little because that foam surround on this one is sandwiched in between this piece right here and the basket itself. It's going to be like glued on both sides. Now this cork piece really only serves one purpose. That's really only if you're mounting the woofer from underneath. Mine are mounted, mine are top mounted, so really don't need this, but it just makes it kind of look nice, and that's the way it, you know, they all normally are. So I'm going to try to preserve that and take this off and put this right back on where you can't tell it was ever taken off in the first place. But this is a little slow going here, trying to get through some of this foam and glue with the razor blade, but little by little I can get it. Now, of course, if you're using a razor blade, you got to be extremely careful. You know, these things are sharp. One little slip and you might be running to the bathroom for some band-aids or maybe to the hospital for some stitches. So you got to be super careful when you're using these. This is going to take me a little while, probably 5 or 10 minutes to get around the whole outside. Okay, I'm almost there. I don't want to pull on it. If I just keep cutting, it'll pretty much just release by itself. This is just paper, kind of like, well, like a press board, and if you pull on it, you might separate it on the plies. So it's just best bet to just keep cutting away at it until you get it with the razor blade, and then there we go. It'll just lift right off. I'm going to take the ring here, the back side. It's still got a lot of all this foam stuck to it, and there we go. Here's a big chunk. See if I can just easily peel that off without getting any paper. Let's see here. Okay, that's kind of cooperating. There we go. Alright. That's making it easy for me. There's a section I don't really have to do. There we go. I'm just getting this to peel off, which is kind of nice. It's going really fast on this one. Making it easy for me. All I kind of do is just gotta use my fingers and just kind of roll it, and it'll just kind of come off. If it doesn't, I can always take the razor blade at a 90-degree angle to it and just scrape it, and the little bits will start to come off. But either way, I want to make sure I get this off so there's a nice flat surface. And then, like right here, this is not that bad, but this will just be an example. If the paper starts to pull up on the back of this, you can just take the razor blade and cut it against, and then it'll just come off in a little piece, and it won't keep continually pulling off. Always perpendicular with the blade. If you hold it this way, you're going to cut into it and you will start peeling it like an onion, and you don't want that. Okay, am I now satisfied with this? And yes, I am. That's nice, flat and flush here on the back. There will be no problem when this gets glued on. It won't like stick up because there's a big chunk of something on the ring and you're trying to glue it down too thick. Zero damage to the top side here, which is good because it'll go on like it should. Okay, let's set this aside. Let's get our debris out of the way again. Glad I work over glass here because I can just scrape this stuff right off the workspace. There we go. Put your speaker back. Oh boy. Oh boy. Okay. Same thing. I'm just gonna use my finger, rub this just for the bigger pieces. I'm not gonna overdo it. Just want to get the chunks out of the way. Kind of rough sanding here. My middle finger. You know, I love to sand, right? Okay. Dump this. Oh boy. We're making a mess. More debris. Okay, so next I have to get all this residue off because this is the same thing. The next time we go to glue it, it's not going to want to stick good on the surface unless we get all the old material off. And once again, the glue they use for this speaker here is pretty stout. And if they would have used a rubber surround, this would have been a forever speaker. It's almost like a forever glue on here. And I tried on the other one with acetone. Acetone's usually my normal go-to to start breaking down that glue. And that really wasn't doing the trick because it's kind of thick and like boogery. So even with the razor blade, I'm using that, and it's still really difficult to kind of get off. That glue is whatever they use, I don't know what it is, but it's kind of nutty. So I decided not to use the acetone because that stuff, like, it's powerful stuff, almost wants to knock you out. I'm going to use this label and sticker remover from Turtle Wax. It's still some pretty darn powerful stuff, but at least it smells a little fruity. So I'm going to spray just a tiny bit of this so it doesn't slop all over the place. I only want a little bit to come out. Okay, just a very little amount. And what that's going to do now is when I'm scraping with the razor blade, it's going to make it a little easier, kind of like wet sanding sort of with the razor blade. It's going to allow it not to stick as much, and you're going to be able to cut through it a little better. See, this I can do the 90-degree with because it's starting to get out of the way of itself because it's got nothing to stick to. Using this combination just in this case because, as I mentioned, the first one was such a kind of bear to get this, whatever this glue is, off. Then normally I would use the acetone and that would take it right off, but I think they got the glue for this speaker at the same place that Aykroyd got the glue to glue down the gas pedal of the good old boys RV. But this is some strong stuff, I'll tell you. Oh God, I almost just got a little bit of that in the face. And I'll tell you, I'm glad I'm wearing glasses because this stuff's got that bug and tar label remover on it, and you do not want to get it in your eye. Absolutely don't want to get that in your eye. It would sting like a mother. Okay, about 5 minutes. Yeah, look at all the mess this is making. So I'm gonna take a rag and some more of my sticker remover, and I'll just go around it. At least now I've got a fighting chance of getting it all off. Before, if it was all kind of real thick, there just would be no way. This stuff wants to just sit on the surface and start rolling over on itself. There we go. I think that's it. There's just a little bit of a layer towards the bottom. I'm gonna have to get this dust cap off of here because when the speaker doesn't have a surround on it, it can rock side to side very easily. In order to put the cone back on straight, or when you're reconing it too, to make sure that this cone sits level, we have to have the dust cap off and put some shims around it, so that way when we glue on the outside it all goes on straight. You could probably not do this, try it, and get away with it. Maybe it might work, maybe you might not ever have a problem with it, but if you do, you're just going to be repeating this same process. You know what I mean? Just because you don't want to take the dust cap off, you don't want to spend the just a little extra time to not do the whole job twice. And I don't want to do the whole job twice, so I'll spend that extra little bit of time. Now I'm going to take some blue painter's tape, and I'm going to put some tape around this cone in a circle. I gotta clean this edge here. This edge still has some goo on it. I'm gonna take some of the turtle wax, spray it onto a rag because I don't want to spray it on the speaker itself. I'm going to use my hand here, my fingers underneath, just to support the very edge I'm working on. And I'm just going to work it around and work it in here. It's going to take a little bit of effort here to get this off. There, you can see it coming off in the rag already. It's always want to keep flipping to a clean spot of the rag. Will help get it off even quicker. And I'll just go around the whole perimeter and we'll get this surface prepped and ready. Okay, now I'm just going to use my hand as a guide around the edge here, and if there's still any sticky residue on there, I will feel it. Okay, now we're ready for our dust cap, which I want to try and get all the little pieces, naughty bits off the cone. I want to keep in mind not to rub this logo here with the bug and tar because it will take it right off and start smearing it in the cone here. Let's see here. Are we clean? Okay. The reason I got to make it clean here is because when I finally get this off, I don't want the little bits of debris falling down inside the voice coil itself. Now the reason I put the tape on there is because I'm going to use the razor blade, and very gingerly I got to cut the edge of the dust cone, but don't cut the woofer. And I'm going to be doing it at such an angle where I'll be running the razor blade pretty much along the cone, and I don't want to scratch it. So that's what the tape's there for. Now this dust cap is on here really good. I've done the other one and I got it off, but it took some effort. Usually some dust caps you can kind of just put your finger under the edge and almost just kind of peel them off, and they almost kind of fall off. This one is once again the opposite. It is like cemented on there. But no worries, if I get the razor blade at a really good angle and I just use it to start cutting an edge very carefully, I will eventually get under it and it'll allow me to go around the whole dust cap. I'm going to try and use the razor blade and just try to just kind of push it in there. Push it in a little bit. Hold it. Don't hold it up at a hard angle, because then it'll go through the woofer underneath the cap. Okay, so this will probably take me 5 minutes here. Just slowly work this around and get this cap off. Now that I know I got a little bit cut there and I can get my fingernail under it, there's no way I can pull up on this. It's just not like your average dust cap. I finished up with cutting around the edge of the dust cap, and I was able to get it off unscathed. It's kind of like that parody of the Madonna song that Weird Al does. Like a surgeon. Hey! Got the glue off the backside. This was really tough to remove once again due to the glue that they used. But after I removed the dust cap, I put a little bit of tape down here below the edge of where all the residue is left on the cone. Residue. This way when I'm cleaning it, I don't have any chances of any of the debris falling down to that little crack into the voice coil, and I can pull the tape off and everything will be nice and clean. I don't have to worry about getting in there with compressed air, cleaning it out, blowing it out, because I never got anything in there in the first place. And there we go. We're nice and clean. Nothing, not a scrap of anything
fell down in that little gap. Next, I'm going to take a little piece of, this is just cardboard, pretty thin, maybe a little thinner than an index card. I'm going to cut it down a little strip, about a 1/2 inch, and this will allow me to slide it in that gap there on the voice coil. And I'm just going to give it just a ever so slight little bend. That way it'll just go in just a little bit easier. Now that I have those shims in there, the voice coil locks the cone into place. Before, I would push on it side to side and this thing would just flop around. And now the cone is very stiff. It'll rock ever so slightly, but it wants to stay fixed because these shims are keeping it fills that gap so that way the cone can't rock. And this is important when you're gluing down the surround. This way everything gets glued down nice and flat and the voice coil does not sit like at an angle in the magnet. It sits properly the way it should. Surrounds just came today. Here we go. Butyl rubber. I'm just going to put them on here just to check the sizing. Here's the glue I'll be using to install the surround. It's called Eileen's Tacky Glue. I got it at my local Joann fabric store, and you might think, hey, that's odd getting glue at a fabric store for a speaker, but no, this is the stuff you want to use. Whatever they used before, that stuff was ridiculous. This I've used in the past, and it's proven to be a sufficient enough glue to hold the surround down, like for instance to the metal basket itself and also a speaker cone, whether it's poly or even paper, and not lift. As a matter of fact, I've had this glue outlast a foam surround that I once installed 10 years later. When the surround went bad, the glue was still good. This gasket is not, exactly for this speaker. It's more of a universal, so measurements might be off by just a touch. And if I was trying to push this into the speaker too much over that edge, it was going to start wanting to stretch the gasket, which I don't want to do that. I just kind of want to have it lay down on the speaker itself. I'll just go around it real gently. Well, the tacky glue here is proving to be a fail. I thought it was going to work. I've used it before, but it's been a number of years. I've let it dry for at least 3, maybe 4 hours. Hit it with the heat gun a little bit too, and it's still just kind of gummy. This isn't giving me the adhesion I'm looking for. So I'm gonna take it down, start over, and I'm gonna go get some glue like some Gorilla Glue or something like that, because I really don't want this part coming off. I don't know if they maybe changed their glue formula in recent years, but it does work good on paper cones. It's just maybe it's because it's sitting between two plastic surfaces, it doesn't want to dry. Maybe it's just I don't want to wait, but I can tell this isn't going to work. It's not strong enough. This is a little different because we're going from rubber to poly, but I've glued a foam surround to a poly cone before with that very same glue and never had a problem. But I could tell that the way this isn't sitting perfectly on this edge, where it's kind of just wrapping around the edge a little bit where I want to get it glued down, that's not sitting down as flush as I would like it to. I'm not getting the adhesion. Granted, the Eileen's glue is easy cleanup. I've already got the whole outside cleaned up. Once again, that only took about 5 minutes because that glue is water based. Just a little water on a paper towel and I can get it sparkling clean again. So I'm gonna have to step it up. I'm gonna have to get some strong stuff, some better glue. I'm gonna run out to the store and go get something a little better to glue this down where it's gonna stick down this time. I'm back from the store and I picked this up. Loctite shoe glue. This is what I'm going to use to glue the surround down. I mean, I don't need the bond of the century here. I just need the two surfaces to stick together. It's not like they're going to pull apart like this woofer's got like a 1-inch X-Pax or anything like that. It's not a burp woofer. I just need the two surfaces to stick. And this should do it. And something like the shoe glue, hey, if it's going to glue a sole back on the bottom of your shoe, that should have no problem with these two surfaces. The little bottle here has a kind of a pen tip applicator on it, which is pretty cool. It's going to work really nice for me going around the edge. It'll make it really easy. Now my gasket, as I already know, is just, it's like a touch too small for this speaker. I mean, this speaker is so old, there's not going to be a OEM gasket for it, so I'm going to have to use something a little more universal like this. Now, this little edge right here, normally you would think it would hit on this flat edge of the speaker, and that's where the foam one was glued down, but the diameter of this is a touch smaller. Yeah, it's a touch smaller. It kind of hangs over the edge a little bit. So the glue is, I'm going to need to pretty much focus the glue right on this edge here, not even pretty much on the flat part at all, but where it rounds over and just a little bit down, because that's going to be the surface that's going to get mated together. Okay, now that I've got that in mind, we'll get out our shoe glue and we'll start getting high on glue here. Another reason too why I bought this particular glue, dries clear. I don't want to get anything that dries like white or gray, or black would have been okay, but black or clear. See, make sure I got that surface good. Yeah, it looks good. Okay, time to lower on our surround. And I'm just going to try to center it in the screw holes. Make sure that I've got it centered on the outside before I start pressing it down. But that glue is getting kind of really, it's kind of really gummy tacky out here. I'm going to put the little topper back on. I got a little bit on my hands too. I can feel it's already really sticky. This stuff's going to work good. I got a little too much on the cone for right now. I'm not worried about that. I can clean that off later. I'm going to ever so gently start just tapping it down. Trying not to get my fingers in it. It's going to happen, but oh well. It's starting to stick pretty fast, surprisingly. When I was at the store staring at the aisle trying to pick out a glue, they had like a Loctite, like a 60-second glue, and I was almost tempted to get that, but I knew I probably couldn't get this on there and get this fully in place in 60 seconds, and it said you only had about 15 seconds for once you stuck something down to kind of move it around, and I know that's not going to work on this. So hey, shoe glue, once again, you can pretty much go get that about anywhere. Pretty universal glue. I think it should work great on this. Yeah, within 5 minutes here, the shoe glue, whatever it is starting to tack up. You know, getting to the point where it's going to harden. This is going to probably be cured in maybe under an hour. This is good glue. This really is. I'm glad I chose this. Probably going to be about the best thing to hold this down. I'm not just going to keep repeatedly pushing on this. I'll give this 15 minutes on this particular glue, and then I'll come back and I'll give it another little push down just in case something's lifting up on an edge, which it doesn't really seem to be. This is, yeah, it's doing really good. The surface is tacked on it already. It's been about 10 minutes or so, and this glue is tacking up very well. I like this Loctite shoe glue. Not throwing props out to them. I'm not affiliated, no sponsor, nothing like that, but when a product's good, I will say it's good. At least I think it's good. But what I'm going to do is 10 minutes in, this is a little attention to detail kind of on my end, because I could just stop right here and just wait till everything's glued. It would be perfectly fine, but it's the appearance. I want to make it look like I never touched the speaker in the first place. So after 10 minutes, the glue is kind of tacked up. I'm going to just use my finger just to get the bulk of it. I'm not worried about getting every last little bit of it, because I'll do a final clean on it, but I want to get like the chunks out, so that way when I'm going over it with a rag and some acetone, it's going to be a very quick wipe, and this edge here will look perfectly clean. You won't see like any glue sputtering out of the edges, which is a sign that, you know, somebody was in there and refoamed it or whatnot. Which on this particular speaker, that's not necessarily a bad thing. But 10 minutes in here, the glue's tacky enough where I'm not like smearing it as I'm kind of grabbing it, just the little chunky parts. And we will kind of just roll it over and just keep working it around. So I'll spend maybe, I don't know, what, 5 minutes it takes to do this, and just kind of go around the whole outer perimeter here and get the chunky parts out. And if I get lucky and it's cured enough, I might be able to even pull it up like in a strip. There we go. You can see as it fits the right tackiness, I can almost just pull it off in a string like that. Okay, that should be good for the most part. I got a few areas where it's a little messy, but that's okay. That's what the acetone's for, to come back and clean up at the very end. The thing I'm more concerned about is, does this get glued down properly onto the cone? And it looks like it is. Looks like we're getting some pretty good adhesion here. I'm just going to go around it one more time and press everything down. Make sure everything's nice firmly in place, and it really feels like it is. One more time can't hurt. It's really hard not to get the glue on your fingers too, which is why I don't want to wear gloves doing this, because I would just be sticking the gloves to the surface. Get that all over the place. At least the glue I can kind of wipe off my fingers pretty easily. Our glue's on there. I'm pretty confident that this is going to stick it to the woofer no problem. If I grab a little bit of the edge right here, it doesn't really want to even move at all, which before, when I had the tacky glue on there, at this point it was moving around. We only get about a 15 to a 30 minute window with the shoe glue here to kind of pick those bigger boogery parts off. After about 30 minutes, it really is starting to set up and kind of dry, almost like silicone. So if you don't get it right away, the little boogery parts, they're going to be stuck on there, which is no big deal if you don't really care about aesthetics. Okay, I'm thinking maybe about an hour or two this should be fully cured. Okay, I'm gonna go glue up the other one because I do have a second woofer, and this time around hopefully I'll be a little more careful and I won't slop the glue on as much. Hopefully maybe I can get it to the point where it just oozes out the edge, which is really what I would want. That way there's less cleanup. Glad I bought a second tube of this stuff, because I'm nearly running out with what I've done so far, and I wouldn't be able to finish 2 speakers with just this one tube. But my next step, since this is drying nicely around the inner edge, is going to be to glue the outer edge to the basket. Pretty simple. I'm just going to lay down a really nice good bead. Okay, that got everything all the way around. I really like this stuff. The shoe glue goes on nice and gooey, like a gel. It doesn't run. It starts to tack up pretty quickly, 5 to 15 minutes. It's almost dry, or it's getting hard tacked within about 30 minutes to 45 minutes. And it's almost dry within an hour. I'm sure it'll fully set like overnight. I'll just go around the edge and just tamp it down just ever so slightly. Kind of spread the glue out. And then I'm going to use the glue, and I'm just going to go around the gasket with the glue. Pretty simple, and then we'll just flip the gasket up on top of the woofer. Okay, that's a nice good bead of glue. It's about an 1/8 inch high, 1/8 inch wide or so. You don't need all that much. I'm going to place it on, of course, center it to the screw holes. And just set this down in its frame. And now I'm just going to take the woofer and flip it upside down and let the weight of it compress that cork gasket down. I'll just leave it like this for maybe about an hour or so, and that'll glue that nicely into place. Once the outer gasket has had enough time to set and cure into place and dry, I got one last thing to do. I just got to re-glue the dust cap, and I used some tape just temporarily when I was going around with my fingernail trying to get the excess glue off, just try to tidy up, because I didn't want those glue balls falling in the gap of the voice coil. They would be difficult to get out because they would want to stick down in there. Little preventative measure. This way I won't have to deal with that. I won't have to deal with things down in the voice coil. The voice coil will be just as clean as when I started, as far as that little gap between it and the magnet itself. I'll remove shims I could put in there. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now the woofer's free to move up and down again, and it's going to be perfectly centered down there in that gap, almost kind of like a piston in a cylinder. It's going to be perfectly centered in the cylinder. It's not going to be tipped to one side, or it'll be rocking where it can kind of, cause problems. Or dust cap, I'm going to just glue this back edge, and I'll be setting her down into place. Now I'm just going to try to glue the dust cover close to the edge, but I don't want to get it on the edge. I don't want any, hopefully, to kind of squirt out. It'll make for minimal cleanup. Now, like the game of Operation, it takes a steady hand. I'm going to drop this into place. Right about there. See how close I am. I'm just gently going to push around the perimeter of the dust cap so it flattens down that glue under the edge. I did a little better on this one. I hardly got any glue coming out at all on the one edge. Maybe just a little bit over here. This one's going to be really easy to clean up. The first one I did, I got a little more glue on there, so I'll have to come in and finger pick and clean that out, because that looks to me a little messy, and I'd like that to look a little nicer and neater. Now in the home stretch, because really all I have to do now is just to clean up. Let's see here. Yeah, if you wait a certain amount of time, you can peel off some of your overages, like I've got on this one. This one was a little messy, first one I did here. You start to peel off your overages without having it be too wet or too hard. Somewhere between 15 and 30 minutes. There, that's coming off in a strip. I like it when it does that. I'm just using a rag with nothing on it, just wiping it back just a little bit, picking up just a little bit of it. But I can do the same thing, use my fingernail, start kind of getting the chunks out of the very edge. This is just attention to detail. On my end, just trying to make it look like nobody was ever here. Come on, keep going in a strip, come on. What's nice about the polycone too is that I can do this with my fingernail. I can kind of just scrape across the surface of it and I'm not worried about ruining it. Hardly even does anything to it at all. Just makes it easier to get the glue off. I wouldn't do that on a paper cone though. That's for sure. That just took about maybe 5-10 minutes, and I went around and just picked most of the bigger boogies off, so this way the cleaning at the very end is going to be light, fast, and easy, because I will be using acetone, which acetone is kind of like a glue remover in itself, so the less I use it, the better. But before I do, I'm going to let this sit at least overnight. As I'm picking the glue that's tacked over already around the edges, the glue that's just under the edge, that's still kind of wet. So that's going to take a little bit for that to dry and harden up. This way when I use the acetone on a rag, I won't like bleed into that and have that start having the edges kind of coming undone. Once the glue has had enough time to set, and it's been a few hours or so, I'm going to use some acetone, and anywhere I've got a little bit of just kind of glue smears, this will take it right off. I don't want to get too aggressive with it around the edges. The dust cap I can kind of get in there, but this is kind of why I picked at it with my finger, because I didn't want a whole ton of it on there. It's just too hard to get off. I'd be wiping it for quite a while. I'm just trying to get the smeary glue that I kind of missed a little bit. And it should be relatively easy to come off. Around the edge here I got to be careful because I don't want to get too close to the edge. I just want to kind of get right up to the edge. But any residue I kind of got, any little overages, the acetone will pretty much just take it right off. I keep switching to a new clean part on the rag each time because it's picking up adhesive, and if you don't, you'll just start smearing it around to other places. I'm not going for ultimate perfection here. I'm just trying to get rid of the overages, the smear marks. I definitely don't want to get any of this acetone near that silk screen label in the middle. Once again, it will just zip it right off. Okay, I'm happy with that. all the glue I removed around the excess, around the dust cap. Just gonna go around the edge here, and if I see any smudgy glue here towards the edge of the cone, just gonna try and get that picked up. I really don't want to wipe into where the gasket is here because I don't want to start loosening the glue I just applied. So I'm getting close to it, but I'm not really pressing into it. Just right up to maybe the very edge of it. And it's looking pretty good. I think I got this pretty clean now, pretty glue free. Maybe next time I'll use a little less glue, but I think I started getting a little paranoid after using the Eileen's tacky glue and it not working, which I was really kind of surprised. I could have edited that part out of the video with the Eileen's, but hey, it just goes to show sometimes things you thought used to work all of a sudden don't work, or I don't know, maybe something's different. I mean, I used the Eileen's glue on a poly woofer before and didn't have a problem. The only difference now is I've got a butyl gasket, and it's also kind of rolling a little bit on that edge to be glued instead of on the hard flat edge on the very edge of the woofer. But this will work just fine. As a last step, I'm just going to use some spray wax, and I'm just going to go over the cone really quickly, just because I've hit it so many times with acetone. Freshen it up, make it look better, give it like its last little final detail here. Yeah, that's looking a little better, I'd have to say. One of them now is completely done, and I'm pretty happy with the way this turned out. The average person would probably not be able to spot that this has been refoamed. I've now got the second speaker completed after about 5 or 10 more minutes of freshening and sprucing it up. I finished it to the same quality as the other one. Cleaned up the glue around the edges of the surround and around the dust cap as best I can without getting too into it where the acetone's going to start releasing the glue that I just put on. But I think this looks really good. I really do. I don't think, once again, the average person would be able to tell that this part of the speaker has been replaced, but an eagle eye would be able to tell. Like, for instance, the glue on the side, it would have to be 100% laid down like a perfect bead, like a robot did it, which I'm pretty sure robots do the gluing for speakers, so that would be kind of your only tip off that this has been replaced. But these are now been restored to pretty much new condition. They're probably better than new because now I've got a butyl surround on here that's not going to rot out like the foam ones. So I can put these back in the car and enjoy the bumps for many years to come out of these. And it didn't really cost me that much. I mean, those 2 little tubes of glue in the back, I spent $11 for those, and the 2 surrounds shipped to my door, that was about $13 or $14. So both woofers were repaired for about $25 or about $12 a speaker. You factor it's going to take you about maybe 2 hours of your time average to do one speaker. It took me maybe 2.5, a little bit more, because the glue is just so tough on these to begin with. But we got her done. I mean, if I had to go out and buy new speakers instead of doing this procedure, these speakers in today's money are going to cost me about $250. $25 to fix them is a much better alternative, I think. So hopefully in this video I provided you with all the tips and tricks that you can do the same thing to your own set of speakers, save yourself a lot of money. And I hope you enjoyed watching the video, and as always, thanks for watching.